Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 4 video on Blazor WebAssembly CRUD sample where we use .NET 7 API as a backend and MudBlazor library for UI components. So the main idea of this video is to implement the create operation. So to implement create operation, we need to create HTTP post endpoint in the API project. And next, we need to add a form in the Blazor WebAssembly application. So using that form, we have to add a new items. Okay. Now go to API project and in the services, go to iSuperhero service. Let's define a method definition for creating the item. Okay. So let me create. So it will going to return the newly created item as a return type, and I will name it like create superheroes missing. Okay, this is my method definition. Let's implement this definition. So go to superhero service and implement the method. Okay, this method will have superheroes as a payload. So we have to insert this new item into the database. For that, we can write logic like my old DB context dot superheroes dot add. Okay, so here we are adding our new item to the database context. So once adding any item to the context means we changed the state of the context. So when the state of the context is changed, at the time if you call dot save changes async method, it will update the all the modified state available in the DB context. So now we have to write like await my old DB context dot save change. So it's going to insert our data into the DB. And finally, let me return my newly created item. Okay. Now let's create a HTTP post action method. Okay. And in that action method, let's consume this create superheroes async method. So go to our controller. Let me add public async task action result post async. Okay. Since it is a post method action method, right? It should be decorated with the HTTP post. Now let's consume our newly created service method, that is create superheroes async. Okay, await superheroes dot create superheroes async. Okay, that's it. That is our action method, and our post async method should read the form data or the user posted data. Okay, let me create a input like superheroes new superheroes and pass the payload to our service method. Okay, let's run the application and test in the Swagger page whether our newly created endpoint in that page. Okay, here post method is available now. So now I can consume it. Okay, let's close all the service files. Now let's go to our Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay, so to display the collection of items, we have created page level component like all pages superheroes, right? So to display the create form also, let me create a page level component. So inside of the superheroes folder, let me add a razor component and let's name it like add superheroes. Okay, so let's configure route for this component. So I can use @page directive and double quotes and path always start with slash, okay, and superheroes slash add. Okay, let's try to access this endpoint and check whether we are able to get this add superheroes message or not. So go to add. Okay, here we can see add superheroes. That represents we are successfully accessing our new Razor component. Now in this page, we have to create our form. So to create that form, we are going to use the MudBlazor UI components. Okay. So first to work with forms. Okay. First we need to render the component like, let me remove this H3 tag. Edit form component. Now inside of this edit form component, let's add a card component. Okay. Mud card component. So I can specify mud card. Okay. And I can add mud card content. So in this mud card content, let's add our form fields. So let's check what kind of fields we will have. So let's go to our response object. This is the response object we created, right? So if you observe here, we have to create a text box for name, text box for franchise, and we are going to add a radio button component for gender, and franchise I am going to add a drop down component. For image URL, I simply use text box component. Okay, so first let's add the mud component fields. So go to MudBlazor website. Okay, go to components, and in the components go to forms and inputs and go to forms inside of it. So let's create a form something like this. Okay, so we are using edit form support, right? So let's check this sample. So to display a text box, we have to use mud text component. Okay, so let's copy this and add it here. So I can remove this hypertext character and I will change label like simply a name. Okay, and if you observe here, there is a bind dot value. So at the rate bind dot value enables two-way binding, means we can pass the value to the text field from our C# code, or we can read the value from the HTML into our C# code. Okay, that is two-way binding. And for attribute represents the field in the model. So what is this model means? Edit form must register with a model. Okay, form binding model. So first let me define the model here. So I will define model like superheroes VM. Okay, superheroes form model. Okay, initialize it. Okay, now I have created the model, right? So I can map this object with the @model attribute on the form. Okay, @superhero model. So I binded my model. So now I can access our variable name is superheroes, right? Superheroes model dot name. Okay. Here also we need to change superheroes model dot name. Okay. Now those red lines are gone, right? Okay. Let's check the output. And here is small correction. I added before the model, right? I should not add it. Okay. Now if I check again, see, here is my text box, right? Okay, let me add image URL as well. So let me duplicate this mud text field for image URL. Okay, now we have to change the label like image URL, and bind value must be changed to image URL property. Okay, and here for also change to image URL property. Okay, let's check. So we are getting two text fields. Now let me add a drop down for displaying the franchise. So to go for a drop down, go to select. Okay, let's copy one of this kind. Let me copy this. Okay, let me copy this. I will copy this top mud select and add it next to our image URL text box. Okay, let's change label to gender, sorry, franchise. For text field, we used @bind value, right, to enable two-way binding. Same thing, we can add it to our mud select also, or drop down also. Okay. So here let's change property to franchise. Okay, here there are selected options, right? So now what I will do, I will change these values to DC and Marvel. These are my options. But I want to display in caps. So for that, I will extend the element. Okay. I will remove this self-closing tag. Okay. Now I don't need last option. Save it. Now check it. Okay. Now I got drop down as well. And finally, I need text box. Sorry, radio button group. Let's go to MudBlazor and look for radio buttons. Here is the radio buttons. Okay. So let's select one of the sample. Okay, let me copy this and add it here. Okay, and first let me give the options. Okay, first thing is for two-way binding for text field and drop down use value bind, right? For radio button, it should be @bind selection option. Okay, so here it is bit different for radio button group. So here let me render my superhero model dot gender. Now let me give the values, option values like male, okay, male, female. Let remove this option. and here let's give others. Okay, so here there is some disabled condition. Let me remove all these things. Okay, let's check it. Okay, we got name, image URL, franchise dropdown, and gender radio button. Okay, to display better UI, whatever image URL we add, let's preview it. Okay, so for that, let's add one more mudcard content. Okay, mudcard content. Okay, here I want to display the image preview. So for that, go to MudBlazor. So look for image section. Okay, and let's try to get this preview. Okay, so copy this entire thing and add it here. Here I can directly give like object dot fit. Let me give like cover, and here in the src I will bind my superheroes model dot image URL property. Okay, so that whenever in the text field we add any URL, that URL gets previewed in this div. Okay, and let's specify there are height and width, right? So let's change width to some 250, little bit smaller. So let's check. Okay, let me remove the alt tag for now. It is showing some breaking image, right? Okay, now we have a box here, but the box is coming at the bottom of the form, right? So what I will do, I want to divide this form on left hand side our form fields and right hand side I must see the preview. Okay, so for that what I will do, on the mud card let's add a class property and apply flex direction. Okay, now we are getting result what we expected. Okay, let me decrease the size of the container also. Okay, for that let's add mud card with width property. So that is like I will give like 800. Okay, now here you can see the width of the card is reduced. Okay, but I want to center the content. So I can use justify center. Okay. Okay, now the content is moved to the center, but I want to display the card into the center, entire card. So for that, the edit form, let's wrap around a either some div or a mud container. Okay, here I will wrap it around a div. Okay, so let's move this entire thing into this div. And let's add classes like deflex and center, justify center. Okay, let's check. Now the card is centered. Let me give some margin top. So on the div itself, I can give like empty 6. Okay. So we got some margin. Now let's give some spacing between these fields. Okay. For that on each field, let's add a class and give margin top like 2. Okay. Let's add a button here. Okay. For that, go to MudBlazor and go for buttons. Okay. And let me copy one of the button here. Okay. Let me copy this primary button. Add it here and give some margin top. Okay. And button label like add. And we have to define the button type. Okay. So button type equal to, it's a form submit, right? Button type dot submit. Let's check now. Okay, I got the button. Now let's add a form heading. Okay, for that, let's add one more div just like this. Okay, closing div. Now inside of this div, let me add a MudBlazor chips. Okay, let's copy one of these chips. Okay, add it and let's give h3 tag or h4 tag. Give h3. Okay, and give a label like create a superhero. Let's check now. Okay, now our form looks better. Now on clicking the form, on clicking the button, our edit form can listen for some events. In that, on submit is one event. Okay, on submit. So this on submit must be registered with a method for posting the form data. So let me create a method here. Okay, async task create superhero async. Okay, let's map our class with our on submit event. Okay, now let's implement our logic to post API call. Okay, so that is like await. So to invoke the HTTP call, we need HTTP instance, right? So inject the HTTP instance using inject directive, and I want HTTP client instance, and I will name it like HTTP. Now I can use this HTTP post JSON async, and the return type is, we know from API it is superheroes returning, right? So specify the VM and path and the payload. Our payload automatically stored into the superhero form model, right? Because this is binded to our form. So simply pass the superhero model. So here API is nothing but the same API but post request. So I can copy this route and add here. Okay. Now after saving, I want to navigate back to my home page. So for that we need to inject one more service, that is navigation manager. So at the top, at the rate inject navigation manager. Okay. Manager service. So I can use this navigation manager service to navigate from one component to another component. So navigate underscore navigation manager dot navigate to and specify the route. So our all superheroes component route, copy the route and add here. Okay. So we are done with total logic for creating the form. So now I want to come to this form from the home component. Okay, now in this home component, I want to add the add button on the top of these cards. Okay, so for that, go to our all superheroes component. Here inside of the mud container, let me add my button. Okay, so go to the buttons and go to fab buttons. Okay, like a rounded buttons. So let me copy this. So add it here, and I don't want icon, I just want to display the text. Add label like add. Okay, now check. But the add button is coming starting of the cards, but I want to this add button on the top of the cards. Okay, for that what I will do, let me wrap around individual divs. Okay, move this content inside of this div and add some styles to this div. Like now let's add one more div and move the for each content inside of the div. Okay, now let's remove the deflex from the top of the mud container and add like individual classes. Okay, now let's check. Okay, now it is coming on top of the cards, but there is no spacing between them. So let's add margin like MA in all direction 2 pixels. Okay, so now let's check. Now I am getting space between the card and the add button, but I want add button must be centered. Okay, for that I can use justify center. Okay, let's check. Now it is little better. Now on clicking this button, I need to navigate to my add superheroes component. So let's register a click event for this button. Previously for form we didn't registered any click event for button because already we are using form button inside of a form. So there is no need to explicitly register the click event. On clicking the button itself, on submit form event gets raised. But here it is not a form, simple button. So we need to register the click event. So to register the click event, on click. Okay. See, all are small. Okay. On click, at the rate on click. So to this method, I will write a logic, simple logic. Okay. So at the rate and open circular brackets. Okay. And I will use arrow function so that I am going to write my simple logic inside here directly. Okay. Now to navigate, we know we have to inject the navigation manager service. So inject navigation manager. Okay. Underscore navigation. Okay. Now I can use this service directly. If you don't create like this, you have to create a method in our at the rate code block. Because since it is a single line of code, I am using arrow function directly on the on click. Okay. So navigation dot navigate to specify the route of our add superheroes component. Okay. Semicolon. Now let's check. Okay, if I click on add button, see, I am able to navigate to my add superhero component. So let's add a new superhero. So let's open inspect element to check the network call. So, okay, let's add new superhero. Let's add image URL. Okay, after adding image URL in our text box, if you focus out, see, nicely preview is coming. Okay, now let's click on add button. See, we navigate back to our home page component. And if you see the network call, first call is our post call. And here is our payload. And in the preview, here is the response. Okay, and we successfully navigated to our home page after saving it, right? But if you observe, cards are shrinking, right? Reducing their size. But I want to go the cards into the next line. Okay, if the additional cards are adding instead of shrinking. So for that we can change the CSS in our all superheroes component. Okay, so here let me add a class like FlexWrap. Okay, and add justify center. Small correction, it is FlexWrap. Okay, now check. Now see, the content is centered, any additional cards going down, but there is no spacing here, right? So to give the spacing around all sides, so MR change to MA, all sides. Okay. Okay, now display also good, right? And we also successfully completed our create operation. Okay. So we are going to implement update operation. So in update operation, we are going to create HTTP put endpoint in API project, and we are going to add a new form for update. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please support by subscribing to channel, and also don't forget to like and share the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.